This is the Collecting Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamel.
I'm so much more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
This is Collecting Real Estate. My name is Stephen Purse. I'm here with my co-host, Bill Hamel.
Good morning, Stephen.
Morning, Bill. Today we're talking about 279 Troy Schenectady Road.
Yeah, 279 Troy Schenectady Road in Latham,
So this is outside of that Pine Hills neighborhood.
Yeah, this is outside the Pine Hills neighborhood, but I'm excited when I say Latham because Latham is, premium location. Growing up in Clifton Park, about 10 minutes down the road, Latham has always been that very busy, growing town in a fantastic school district and, super desirable place to live and also do business.
Do you remember around what the date was for this one?
We're probably at 2002, 2003 period at this point. So, we're certainly building a portfolio in the city of Albany, a little bit in Menands. And, once we were able to come around to Latham, it was nice. We were starting to really kind of connect the dots through the area.
Yeah, those three locations make somewhat of a triangle. Tell me more about the property itself.
This one, we approached it, bank foreclosure. At this point, there was a real estate broker that worked for Remax that we had purchased a few properties from, so at this point, he was giving me the heads up on foreclosures that he would be listing that may make sense for me. And, this was one of them. And it was a mixed use property right on Troy Schenectady Road, which is also considered Route 2, very busy street, commercial. And it had a vacant apartment on the second floor and had the first floor an old hair salon that went out of business. And the owner of the hair salon also owned the building, lost the building. So we were approaching this, as an office on the first floor and then an apartment above.
And was your office in Albany at this point?
I didn't have an office. So we're now up to, property, 14 or so as far as putting in a portfolio. So, up till now, we're just running our business out of our house.
Okay.
Simple administration, bookkeeping, and, running around, collecting real estate, working on real estate, out of our pickup trucks, I guess you can say. And, this one made a lot of sense because I think I was staring at this saying, hey, this could be our first office.
Okay. I think our numbers are off on the count because there's a couple that you flipped. So you're not counting them for the portfolio and I'm still counting them. Just to note that. What made you decide that it was time to get an office?
Well, at this point we had, we're in double digits now. Yes, we're a little bit off on our number count because my numbers are different than yours for different reasons. But we now had quite a bit. We're let's see, 10 years in the business, and this property had a small space, had a detached 2-car garage, and we're able to now set up shop, so to speak, because of our current inventory. And I was also a real estate broker selling property to different people. So what comes along with that is needing an office space to meet potential clients, just to be a legitimate broker at that point.
Did you have any plans to hire employees when you first got the office?
Yes, I believe we knew that we needed, at least a part-time person to answer the phone and do simple tasks. So I'm I believe that we had somebody all set up for that. It was a tenant that lived in our single family house at 229 Broadway in Manans. So when we did get into this purchase and we were rehabbing the space to get it turnkey, you know, the tenant we had a good relationship with was set up to do some part-time work for us at that point in that office.
Okay. I like talking about this one because this is the first property that we've discussed that I've actually seen myself, because this is the office you were using when I first started working with you. Did you feel like you almost made it at this point? Because up until now, you've been only purchasing investment properties, and now you're purchasing something for yourself, and it's an office, and you can put your stuff in there. You can sit down and say, I'm going to go to work, and I've actually made a business for myself.
Absolutely. At that point, it was clear that I could be an entrepreneur in real estate. So I had the real estate portfolio growing. I was a broker. You know, friends and family were hiring me to help them purchase property or list their property. At the same time, you know, we were buying properties that needed work. So you have that construction end. So I really knew that I could fill my time. I sit here and smile at this point because it was, you know, it's that I saw how much work that could be done based on the business I was involved in, but I wanted to do it all. So at that point, over the next 3 or 4 years, yeah, I'm in the business. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of different ways to make money. And now I'm running around trying to do it all and wear many, many hats. So it was good, but also bad in a way to where I'm really trying to do so many things, not focusing on 1 or 2 things and doing it really well.
Yeah, it's so hard. Did you have competition on this foreclosure, or was it pretty straightforward?
Yeah, the neighbor wanted it too. He was an insurance man who owned the property right next door. And, you know, he saw this building, you know, probably for the last year and a half in a distressed manner. So, you know, he knew that eventually something will come of it. So when it did list, you know, he was on it as well. Fortunately, that broker that brought us the deal, you know, I was hungry and knew about the deal and knew the importance of, you know, as soon as you see it day one, if you can make sense of it, buy it quickly. So we were able to, you know, slam it home faster than he was able to compete. I still believe it came down to, here's our best offer. We saw his best offer, and fortunately we won.
So you were working on the first floor and there was a tenant on the second floor. How did that work out for you?
Actually, the second floor was vacant. The third floor had a tenant, and the third floor was just an attic apartment that was illegal. So it was mixed space, commercial, but also had a variance for a 1-bedroom apartment. So we came into this knowing we had to rehab the garage, the first floor space conversion from hair salon to an office. The second floor 1-bedroom just needed a little bit of work. That was a cleanup, and then just take care of, you know, getting it fresh and clean for the next tenant. And then the third floor had this attic apartment where a guy was paying like $300 a month. And, you know, we let him stay for the next probably 1.5 to 2 years. And until he moved out, then we just stopped renting that apartment because it was illegal. You know, someone was not supposed to be living in that attic space.
Mm-hmm. Now, up until this point, you spent a lot of time running around between the properties, doing construction yourself. Did you see your day-to-day schedule change now that you had an office?
Yeah, now I had a place to hang my hat, so to speak. So, you know, between the properties that we're purchasing on, the properties that we're working on, because our deal flow is pretty good at this point and we're staying busy with all of that. So we have properties to manage, properties where we're swinging a hammer and rehabbing. And then I'm also representing buyers and sellers. So I'm in and out all day, depending, with a work list, to-do list that could choke you. And, I loved it, so it was just being super busy, doing a lot of different things. And that was our spot. I felt significant at that point where, I had an office and, we got a business going here.
At this point, you said 14 properties. How many units do you think it was? 30?
Oh, geez. At that point, it's funny because when I would, be with friends and still probably having roommates at that point, it was, now I'm able to, in my head, go from property 1 to 14, where friends would say over a beer, hey, how many properties do you have now? And I always had that answer because it was such a deliberate, slow rental growth. I always knew what my portfolio consisted of. So at that point, I'm able to, two family, going through in my head to the point where, at that probably 19 or 20 units.
Okay.
At that point.
Because the property before this was the 7-unit. So that's what I was wondering, if at this point, were you only looking for those larger commercial spaces, or are you still interested in duplexes and smaller multifamily?
Oh yeah, I was definitely the small 2 families were still in our wheelhouse. I think at that point I was very, very still programmed that these 2 family houses in the city of Albany, and starting to get into looking in the city of Cohoes, because it's right down the street from Latham. And 2 family up and down flats was our wheelhouse, and I was anxious to continue that collection.
Looking back, would you have gone after bigger properties instead, knowing what you know now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. At that point, I think going back to continue to take advantage of the opportunities with the small properties, because there still was a lot of good profit potential. But opening up, my mind to, hey, let's really see if we could get into an 8 or a 10 or a 12 unit based on how well that 7-unit was doing. And I don't know why I didn't make that aggressive mindset jump. It still took, a number of years to really aggressively want to do that.
You say 8, 10, 12. I'm thinking you go after the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, well, at this point, I went from buying a 7-unit. Then, yes, we bought the office, which was great. That was exciting. That was necessary to make that legitimate step into the business industry. But then I immediately fell right back into the 2s. I was, just because it was what we did, what we got really good at, creating this system of, I know exactly what it takes to, handle one of these 2 families. And, so it's easy for me to say I should have jumped into the 8s and 10s. I wasn't even aggressive enough to do that. So I appreciate you saying, yeah, I should have been into the 20s and 30s, but geez, I didn't even think that was possible for me, which is crazy on that limiting belief that I had for myself.
Would you, going back, completely hypothetical, would you sell off the smaller stuff to buy one bigger property? Again, knowing what you know now, would that trade-off be worth it?
Geez, it's such a difficult question, because I valued building that portfolio up where I was a buy, hold guy, even if I didn't have the limiting belief and I knew that I could get into larger multifamily. I would have, my goal still may be, looking back, just to buy the smalls and buy the bigs, and then just to build that portfolio as well as I could. Yes, real life kicks in. You only have so much money to do deals, and cash is king. So
Mhm.
cash was always the biggest challenge in growth. So once you do get into the larger multifamily, if I had at an earlier point, it probably would have been necessary where I'm using that equity from the small stuff to get into the big stuff,
Yep.
or selling some smalls to get into the big stuff. So, I just would have had to get much more creative at that point.
Where was your deal flow coming from at this point? Was it mostly MLS or was there some off-market deals as well?
We were MLS, and we were aggressively searching those legal notices in the local newspapers, where we were seeking those foreclosure auctions at the county courthouse steps. Those where we had some real good success getting some serious buys in that market. So, that's where we felt like, you can get those deals where you're buying stuff at 30-40 cents on the dollar. And, that those were the steals of the market.
Do you still check those listings?
Yeah, we do. It's not like I should. The larger multifamily doesn't come across that way. We do still check them because I still leave it open for flip opportunities. My wife got into flipping properties 7-8 years ago. So that's her enjoyment. And she primarily would like to just buy single families or two families and flip them. That's more of her comfort zone. So it's something that I'll always consider as long as we can get into it. I turn it over to her. She takes care of the A to Z of what we do to flip a property, and I don't get distracted with it.
I think I need to check those listings more often because such an important part of the puzzle is buying right, and you can really find some good deals on there.
No doubt. I could even share with you that, the Fortune and Foreclosures publication that I purchased, that the rules don't change, that the same concepts still exist on how to look for those and how to research those and how to actually buy those. So, it just came about from my learning curve, my education that I was able to, get, so I was able to be aggressive buying that style property.
Is there anything you would do differently for 279 Troy Schenectady?
279 Troy Schenectady do differently. I don't think, I don't think so. It had its ups and downs. It was now we have commercial space. So once I did move out of there, 10 years later, I found once again how difficult sometimes, it is to rent a 900 square foot office. You figure that you could just put it up for rent just like an apartment and it would rent. But I went through a couple stints over the years where, that office space took me, 8-9 months or a year to fill.
I forgot that you had left that office and then gone back to it. Why did you leave it?
We left because I had purchased a mixed use space in the Center Square neighborhood of Albany in like 2004 or 2005. And Center Square is just premium urban location in the city of Albany, right near the Empire State Plaza and the Capitol and trendy Lark Street. So now I've got some larger multifamily in that neighborhood, and it was just really elevating our portfolio at that point. And I was able to take over this office space at that location on Hudson Avenue. And my goal was to really build a business base in that neighborhood where now I could sell multifamily for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and also manage the inventory that we built up in a short period of time in Center Square. And I just wanted to take over that neighborhood.
So that's where you wanted to be. Why did you end up going back to towards Schenectady Road?
Well, it ended up being another 8, 9, 10 years in Center Square. So we continued to build up a portfolio successfully. And I was, a property manager of 230 units at that point. And I feel like I just played it out. I did not turn into that sales broker I really wanted to be in that neighborhood. I found out that, in real life, I was known as the property manager in that neighborhood, not the sales broker. And I think the market and the neighborhood, I developed a lot of good relationships with people in that neighborhood, but they would list their properties with other brokers that specialize in that neighborhood and didn't utilize me. They just saw me as the property manager, and I was not able to get that sales presence I wanted. So after 8 or 9 years, I maneuvered back towards Latham when that space came up, and went back to the old office.
What did you do to try and build that sales presence?
Oh, I did. Geez, I was doing systems. I would buy real estate sales systems that are very, very effective. It comes down to, on a daily basis, you're focusing on the property listings, your buyers, your clients. And the name of the game is, developing that relationship with your clients and communicating regularly with your clients, so they always know, what you're doing with their business. So there is a marketing plan. So I developed a 24-point marketing plan that was very, very effective. Where I had difficulty was managing 230 units and continuing to build a portfolio, and that was taking away probably 70 or 80% of my energy and my time, and I never focused more than 20% on the sales end. So I was never able to get that sales where I wanted it to be because my focus was more on the property management.
Yeah, at this point, you have a property management company, an investing company, and a brokerage company. What do you think you could have done differently to have all three succeed? Because you would have needed help. You can't do it all on your own.
It was to really get somebody on the construction end, which I did. I guess it's more of, once again, it's I've always been the chokehold of my growth. So yeah, I had my partner, Greg, was a construction guy. We had handymen who we're now starting to hire, but I'm still doing a lot of that rehab work, and I'm running a lot of that rehab work, where if I would have just removed myself from that whole construction process and just focused on acquisitions and brokerage, I would have been much, much better off, because I always gravitated towards, the construction side, which took way too much of my attention.
I think it was Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets who said that he actually threw out his tools because there's no other option. And if they were still there, he'd be using them.
You wonder why, at this point, I'm so grateful to have made the decision to just hang up my property management shoes, because I just was not able to shake, that distraction, right to the point. This is the funny part. I went from my Honda Accord recently, to a new SUV, and I was out of property management at this point. I think you can remember when I was making a transition from my car that one day at the 39 unit, where I'm emptying out a bunch of miscellaneous property management stuff out of my Honda Accord, like 3 months ago.
Yeah, that was definitely a work vehicle.
Yeah, so where I'm putting it into our storage, where, to kind of jump into your Brandon Turner, I should have been taking all that stuff and just throwing it in the dumpster. I should have done that with what was in my vehicles 5 or 10 years before that, which was always filled with tools and property management stuff. So I just could not shake that part of the business until I hired third-party management, and I think I'm close to being cured.
It takes a transition period, definitely.
Yeah, a long one for me.
Is there anything else you want to add for this one?
No, I think that sums it up.
All right. Well, that was a good discussion. Thank you, Bill. I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right, Steven.